So how do you tell yourself the right story? Because too often people get caught up in the wrong story, and that story sabotages their life, even limits it. Well, here God tells you. God says, here's the key. Look for the bigger story. And why? Because there is always a bigger story. See, that's the point of those bracelets that Will Bowen passed out, continues to pass out. See, he is trying to point out to people their smaller stories so they can change them. See, because the first thing that happens when people get that bracelet is they realize they do a lot more complaining than they realized. And then second, they begin to become aware of the smaller story that their complaints are telling them. And that motivates them to change it. See, most of the time when you complain, I complain, you are doing cathartic complaining. Cathartic complaining, which is what Bowen is concerned about, is the complaining where you are just venting your frustrations about something in your life. Now, maybe you're just talking to yourself. Maybe you're sharing a gripe with someone. Maybe you're even sharing it on social media. And you may think, oh, no big deal. Just blowing off some steam. But you're also telling yourself a story. And in that story, you are a victim. In that story, you have no power, or at least very little. And that smaller story limits your life. It tells you you don't have power to change your story. It makes your world a world of limitations rather than a world of possibilities. But you see, there is another way to complain. Not the way that Bowen is concerned about. You could call this instrumental complaining. Instrumental complaining is when you don't complain in order to vent. Instrumental complaining is when you complain in order to change something or to get something changed. And that sort of complaining tells you a bigger story. In that story, you have power. You have power to change things or see things changed. And then it motivates you to make that happen. You see, that sort of complaining has the power to change not only you, it has the power to change the world. This past week, on Monday, we celebrated the birthday of a man, Dr. King, who led a movement of instrumental complaining. And that movement changed our nation in profound ways for the better. But not only social movements can do it, you can do it. This past week, I went to pick up my son from his after-school program to take him to a martial arts lesson. And the traffic was terrible. It seemed like I hit every red light, and I was late. And I began to cathartically complain. Then I stopped myself. And I asked, Kennedy, how could you have changed this situation? I said, duh, could have left earlier. And then all of a sudden, that bigger story changed my perspective. I was no longer a victim of unjust traffic. I was someone who could change my situation, and I resolved to do that. See, the bigger story I said is I cannot control the traffic, but I can control when I leave. And if I do that, and likely I will not be late.